think we'll go ahead and kick things off now. We're a couple minutes past the hour. So we are going to be talking through our Summer 24 Release 2 in this webinar. I'm joined today, I'm Michael Daly, the Director of Technical Product Marketing here at Provar, and I'm joined by Samuel Royo, who is our VP of Product and Technology of our Salesforce Apps, and Robin Gupta, who's our VP of Product Technology for Test Automation. So they will be taking through a pretty packed agenda today for all of our application updates for this release. For our agenda today, we'll talk through our new features and enhancements through Provar Automation, which will be 2.13.2. And then we'll be going through Provar Manager 3.5.0. And there will actually be a demo of some of the new latest releases and updates for Provar Manager as well by Samuel. And then, as always, we'll have our Q&A available at the end. Feel free at any time, if you have questions, to leave those in the Q&A function in the Zoom bar at the bottom, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the session. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Robin, who will talk us through Provar Automation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Michael. So happy to be here with the team. If you go to the next slide, Konnichiwa. And if you are wondering why are we talking in Japanese, if you look at the next slide, Provar now wholeheartedly supports Japanese Salesforce org testing. If you zoom in on those things, mentally you can see that the characters are Japanese, and then we are mapping them natively. So there are small boxes. Provar not only understands these fields, we understand it at a depth which no other tool does. So that is one example, but the same example flows through the other parts of Provar as well. So if you go to the next slide, we can very clearly see that even as part of NitroX, we support Japanese characters natively, whether it is title or parameters like the name or inner text on this screen. NitroX can take care of all of them for you. So those are a couple of things on the Japanese support. If you go to the next slide, obviously, this release is power-packed with multiple other features for core NitroX and Test Builder. For example, on core, as we saw, now we support Japanese language. We also have table header interactions, consolidated test cycle reporting, Summer 24 list view compatibility, 24 jar upgrades for us, and then improved security. On the NitroX side, as we saw, we support the Japanese characters, and we have a now toggle button for switching NitroX on or off. Test Builder also has been updated with LWC Style rendering support for custom objects. And we can quickly look at some of these examples in the upcoming slides. If we can please go to the next one. Okay. So first and foremost, as we can see, Provar has improved support for table header interactions now. If we look closely, the table here has the opportunity name and the account name, and these are supported by Provar natively. So that is one. Let's go on to the next one, please. The test cycle consolidated report is a new enhancement we have done to the Provar Automation product. If we look closely, now we can consolidate the report for the execution of entire test cycle. It has been a much demanded feature from our users so that it becomes easier for the tester to report back the results to their team. They don't have to do it individually. It can be consolidated into one report for the entire test cycle. So that is on that note. And if we quickly move on to one more quick sneak peek into the release update, we noticed that custom objects have been updated to LWC Lightning Web Component Style Rendering. And with Provar's recent release, we now support it natively, so that our customers don't have to bother about mapping them or writing cryptic XPaths. Provar would take care of that for you. So that's it from my side, handing it over to Samuel for Provar Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, let's go with the next slide. So this new release of Provar Manager is packed with new features, most of them related to AI. So we've continually been working on how can we leverage generative AI within the application to help testers and QA managers to do their jobs. So we'll be looking at some of those new features later on in the demo. From a release management point of view, we've improved the way in which you can link issues with each other. From a test management perspective, we are introducing a new test plan assistant, which will help you to produce test plans, and then we will see later on, we will drill down on that one. And also we're introducing Provar Assistant. You maybe have heard of Provar Assistant before as a separate website, but we've embedded it now into Manager. We also have updated the test plan progress tracker, and now you can change the status of test executions from within the table. Finally, on test operations, we've added a new quite cool component for Provar Grid. So Provar Grid users wanted to see what was happening behind the curtains when they were running jobs. So now we've created a new component that I'll show later, how you can see all the different machines running your tests in parallel. And finally, we've also been working on test cycle consolidation so that users can manually consolidate those. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So I wanted to introduce Provar Assistant and later Provar Test Plan Assistant. So let's go with Provar Assistant, which is a helpful AI chatbot trained on our vast documentation. So that's both for automation and manager and grid and everything else. And it's meant to just help you and answer all your questions. The clear benefits is that you have easier access to documentation. So instead of just going to Google and trying to figure out how to ask the right question, or just go to our documentation webpage and trying to find where's the answer for that question that you have, it's much easier to just ask Provar Assistant, like we see on that picture there. For example, how do I configure a test plan schedule to run Apex unit test? And it knows all the documentation that is available right now, so it's able to produce a valid answer that then you can replicate within the application. And what this also means is that users don't feel lost within the application, and hopefully the user adoption is faster and they feel more at home within the application. So now with Manager, you can access Provar Assistant from within the utility bar. So it appears at the bottom of the screen. You can open it and have a chat with it. And it's present on the release management, and test operations applications. Let's move on to the next one. Thank you. And then Test Plan Assistant. So from the beginning of Provar Manager, we've had the concept of test plans, which is much more meaty than, for example, what we have in automation or what you may be used to having in other test automation or test management tools, where a test plan is just a bunch of test cases that you may want to run every now and again. We're taking a more serious and thorough approach to test plans, where you actually do planning, and you do that thoroughly, looking at many different aspects of planning your tests. But we also acknowledge that it may be very difficult for certain people, certain roles within the company to start adopting this more complete test plan. So what we thought we could do is help you actually write down those test plans. Instead of just going and browse around and just be presented with a blank space where you are meant to fill in some information, we're now helping you write those test plans with examples, and we also use AI to generate some suggestions based on what you've completed so far. So the benefits is that we want to encourage all testers to think deeper about each aspect of test planning, and we do it by breaking it down into different sections, make it a bit more easier to do, and also by offering those examples and suggestions, so that in the end you end up with a more complete test plan. So we will just go into the demo, and then I'm going to show you how you can benefit from it.
The screen is yours, Samuel.
Thank you. Okay. Cool. So here we are in Provar Manager, which you may be familiar with. And the first thing I want to just show quickly is Provar Assistant. So here at the bottom of the screen, we have recent jobs that we already had before, where you can access your jobs. But then to the left of it, you have Provar Assistant. So from here, you have a window into Provar Assistant, and then you can understand a bit about what it does, how does it work, how to use it best to get the best results out of it, what is a good prompt or a good question, and what does a bad prompt or bad question look like. So it's as easy as just clicking on Get Started and then start asking questions. So this is very helpful for people that don't have documentation at hand, and that's probably most of us. We don't want to have to go to a website and understand how to do certain tasks if we can just ask and get the response straight away. So you will get an answer eventually, and you can just follow the steps and learn how to do it. So I'm just going to minimize that. Also, if you don't want it to be there on top of things as you move along, you can just pop it. Probably because I'm just showing the window, you cannot see it, but it just popped out of the screen, and then you can move it around and keep it with you as you move throughout the application. I'm going to pop it back up, and that's that. Cool. So let's go for test plans, which is the bulk of what we want to show today. So here I have a test plan. And now you may recognize that we had a component to track more or less certain aspects of the test plan, but now we are taking into consideration all the aspects of a test plan to show you how complete it is. So here you can look into different sections. You can click and see which fields have been already filled in and which are not, and therefore eventually you may have enough information to write it down as you progress throughout the planning and design steps. And I think just from a management point of view, it's good to understand, for example, if a team is working on this test plan and I see that they haven't identified any risks. So why is that? They haven't considered it, or actually there are no risks that they can find for this test plan, which would be quite amazing. But where we get now is I'm a tester, or I'm somebody who's in charge of producing this test plan, essentially documenting and filling in all the different aspects of it, at least just thinking through it. But just looking at the blank spaces may feel daunting, and the help information is not enough for me, and I don't have too much knowledge or experience, or it's not my day today, so I'm not thinking straight. So I just need help. I need an assistant to help me write this test plan. So what you can do is click here on the assistant button, which will pop up the assistant. On the left-hand side, you have all different steps that you will be guided through, and you can also see if you completed them or not. In the middle, you have the information, all the different fields that you saw before, you have them here, but you have them in a more step-by-step way so you don't feel overwhelmed with everything that you have on a test plan. And then on the right-hand side, you have examples, and where applicable, we also have AI-generated suggestions for you. So step by step, we give you a bit of information about what you're supposed to write here. And if you feel lost, then you can look at the examples. Okay, first I need to describe the system that I'm going to be testing, one or many. And these are the key features, functional requirements, non-functional requirements. Okay, so maybe I want to think about those. I'll write it here. And maybe I want to define a bit of the system architecture for anyone looking at the test plan. And if it's, for example, a desktop application, then I want to have my system requirements. So I put everything here, and then I go to the next step. Now you look at your objectives. So for example, you see, okay, clearly define the test plan objectives and purpose by stating what you want to achieve through testing. Okay, give me some examples. Okay, so I look on the right-hand side. Okay, objectives, purpose. Cool. So let's say I'm just using the example here, and I'm going to click next. And then you look into, for example, the scope. So what are the features, and what's in scope, what's out of scope? Here on the right-hand side, you can see this pinkish banner here, which is reminding you or showing you that this has been generated by AI. So on the AI Assistant tab, you can see all these different features that you may want to consider. It's like, okay, I have software requirements here, so maybe, okay, customizable dashboard, I want to add that. So you just click it and you add it to the list of features. You can always, almost always you have an example, even if you don't have an AI generated suggestion. Okay, so I'm just going to keep progressing, select the environments I'm going to be testing. And then what are going to be my assumptions and constraints? Almost all the steps build on top of what you've defined as your system overview, your objectives, and your scope. So the better that you describe those, the better the results you will get. And here you get suggestion of, for example, the assumptions you can take into account for your system. And you're not meant to do what I'm doing right now, which is just not even reading what AI is producing, just copy pasting and telling to my boss, hey, I've done it. I've created my test plan. Can I move on to the next thing? So please don't do that. Actually read through and think through it and use what you want. Use what is valuable. Not everything here makes sense for you, probably. Some of those things could be good ideas for you to take into consideration, but not just copy paste and say, okay, we're done. My test plan is complete. So we have test tools. Definitely we're using Provar Automation for this one. I'm going to be doing API testing. Remember, you can do API testing with Provar Automation if you're not doing it. And we're going to do Agile. So, okay, all completed. Let's go to the next one. This may be the first time you've considered having a test data strategy, for example. So it's good to have an example, a more generic example, and also one that fits more with the information that you have fed into the test plan so far. So if you've never had that, then maybe it's something that you want to start having a test data strategy. And also, how are you going to plan your test coverage? I'm just going to quickly go through all of this. Testing procedures. For some things, we will generate information like acceptance criteria based on the features you have. We may come up with some way that you can accept the features that have been properly built. But for example, for defect management, we're not providing anything for you. We're just giving you examples of what you can take into account because sometimes it's very generic anyway. So just going to go through it. I'm going to leave that there. And then risks. So I don't have any risks right now, but for example, a data breach risk. So we have a data breach, and then what is that risk about? So I'm going to have data loss and compliance issues. These are going to be my risks that I identified based on my test plan. And in terms of resources, so team reviews, how are you going to conduct team reviews? How are you going to conduct training? How are you going to train your team of testers into using the different products and learning how they work? And who are your team members anyway? So here we have a few of them. Okay, I'm going to just save this. You can tell my test plan is much more complete right now. All of the information I've entered into my assistant is now here. My scope, everything that was generated is now part of my test plan. Now, hopefully, if before this you were just a bit wary of taking test plans more seriously and you just wanted to not really do any of this and not think it through and just go and build your test cases without much planning behind, maybe now is a good time to start looking into test plans and maybe how you can leverage them to document information, to really make you think about what you're going to do as part of your testing activities and just have a bit more structure around it. So now that we are on the test plan, why don't we look at test cycles? So this plan has been running on Provar Grid in the cloud recently. And if you have Provar Grid beforehand, you didn't have much information about what was happening behind the scenes. So what I'm going to do here is go to my job that triggered this. And now on the right-hand side, you can see this new component, the Provar Grid job status report, where you can see all the different machines. So if you have 2 licenses, then you can have 2 machines running in parallel. And here I configured it to run on Windows 10 and macOS Monterey. And you can see all the different scenarios and the status, how long did it take to run. You can filter by status. You can see pre-steps as well as post-steps, which is to retrieve all the artifacts. Yeah, so you can refresh that. As soon as you trigger the job, you can see what's happening here. You can see all the virtual machines running, all the tests running. You can refresh that as much as you want. Okay, so I think that's everything I wanted to demo. Hopefully, you get to use, if you haven't upgraded yet, please upgrade and get to use all of these features. Thank you.
All right.
Back to you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Samuel, for that demo. And just as a brief aside, for anyone who wants to get their hands on Provar Manager and hasn't tried it out yet, you can try it for free. We do trial it from the Salesforce App Exchange. You can just search for Provar Manager and get access to a trial there. You can also trial Provar Grid. So if you're already using automation and want to see if it works for you, then I would definitely suggest you looking into that as well. Okay, with that being said, we've concluded most of the presentation part of our webinar, so now we're going to jump into our Q&A. We've already had a fair number of questions come in, so I'll go ahead and just start from the beginning here. We had a question around the toggle functionality for NitroX. So Robin, you want to take this one?
Yeah, definitely. So the question is, why would you want to toggle NitroX functionality? So we strongly believe in being customer focused. And if the customer prefers that rather than using NitroX by default, I would rather contribute to the page object because it's that complicated piece of functionality that we want to automate. That is why we've added a toggle. So it's based on the customer preference. They can go this way or that way. We don't want to be the blocker in your flow. Okay, so that's the answer to that one.
Great, thank you, Robin. We had a question around, do you need an open AI key for Provar Assistant? I think I can take that one. You do not. Provar Assistant is available for all customers of Provar to use, and there's no additional charge or anything like that for it. You can access it from the Success portal and now from within Provar Manager. So it does require you to log in before you can use it from within Manager, I believe. But once you're connected there, you're good to go. You do need an open AI key if you're wanting to utilize some of the AI features that Samuel was demoing, such as the test plan assistant and test case generation within Provar Manager. Okay. And then we have a rather long question here, but I'll kind of break this one down. I think this will be for you, Robin. It's around the support for NitroX. Basically just asking around what kind of support are we planning for the future for Salesforce ScreenFlow components and making that a little bit more robust. And then we had a separate question on the accuracy of Provar Assistant with a specific case they mentioned around showing Provar implementation of a case statement embedded within a for loop. So if you want to take that one.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we'll answer them one by one. Interestingly, for NitroX, we need to support the entirety of websites that we interact with. We are moving in a customer-centric fashion, wherein we are looking for demand for certain elements, web elements, interactions, and then trying to support them. ScreenFlows is definitely a big target for us. So hopefully we'll get there soon based on the feedback that we get from the customers and the demand that we see for it. The second is a rather interesting question. If we ask Provar Assistant questions around, let's say, a for loop, we are getting, let's say, generic answers. So I think there are two parts to that question. So the first part is that we are constantly fine-tuning and training our models so that they become more precise, and Provar Assistant gets smarter with every cycle. But then also what we have observed is that with such AI-based applications, what could happen is we could improve the answer massively if we do minor tweaks to the question. So we can specifically ask things like, how do you do for loop in this scenario with these many details on Provar Automation?
Yep.
So those are the two parts.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Robin, I think with anyone who's used ChatGPT or any other chatbots or AI assistants, the accuracy of the question in terms of what you're referring to, don't assume anything. So with Provar specifically, we now have 3 products. So if you just say Provar, there may be some ambiguity there, where you may want to say Provar Automation or Provar Manager or something like that. Okay, we had a question around the test plan assistant. Looks like for you, Samuel. Instead of copy pasting the information from one box to another, is there a way to auto-populate this information directly into the field?
As long as it's not a way of you just filling it in and going to the next field. But yeah, it's a good point. I had it in mind also when I was doing the demo. I was feeling a bit tired of copy pasting. Yeah, we may have a quick shortcut. We may have a timer like you have on the when you need to read an agreement before you check the checkbox. You actually have to scroll through it, and sometimes even have a timer like you didn't have time to read it, so you're lying that you actually read it. So I don't know. We'll help you to copy paste it and leave it up to you if you want to do something with it.
Yeah, as much as we all love documentation, right? Making that process easy, but making sure the documentation actually means something is important too. It shouldn't all just be AI generated, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we had another question, looks like for manager. Can we have approval processes for test plans? Curious to know more information about that one, but I don't know if you want to tackle that, Samuel.
Yeah, definitely. So it doesn't come with the application right now. I don't think test plans even have a status. But yeah, you're free to customize the test plans. Usually what you do is you have a status field, like it could be draft, pending for review, and then accepted or something like that. And then because it's built on the Salesforce platform, you can use Salesforce approval processes where you have a whole flow of when it's draft and it's moved into pending for review, please send an email to this particular user, your QA manager, whoever that is, for example, and then they come here, they can accept it. So it automatically moves the status into accepted, and you can have a track history of the whole approval process. So you can just search for Salesforce approval process on Google and you will see how it works. And you can ask your Salesforce admin, if you don't have permissions to do it yourself, to implement this for you.
Yeah, thank you, Samuel. Another one here looks like for assistant and manager. And this question is, can Provar Assistant read data where we have Provar Manager installed? Interesting question there. Samuel, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, no, it doesn't get any information from manager. So it only knows what you tell it. It doesn't know data from your Salesforce org or manager is leaving your org into our AI. We're not training on it. Maybe we're training on not even the questions, I guess. Do we? Well, if you can give feedback to the answers up and down, and we take that into consideration, but no data from your Salesforce org or manager is going outside.
Yeah, maybe a good segue, Robin, to discuss what kind of training we are doing for Provar Assistant since it's being embedded in different parts of the application.
Yeah, definitely. So just touching that briefly, we've trained Provar Assistant on 2 primary pieces of information. So one is case information. So all the cases which are raised for Provar, we've used that as a data point, and obviously their solutions. And then also documentation around Provar. So pieces from website and so on and so forth, or even the education content from University of Provar. So that is how Provar Assistant has been trained so far.
Thanks for that, Rob. And one last question here we had, is it possible to export the test plan to Word format?
Not right now. And Word format is a bit tricky to generate. Something we could do is export to PDF. I think I've heard that before, and that would be easier to do. And obviously the salesperson behind my ear would tell me, why do you want to export? Just sell another license and get them to use Manager to see the test plan. But yeah, if you want to share it across with people that may not have access to Manager, we can put that in the roadmap to export it into a PDF, and we can look into Word as well.
All right. Thank you, Samuel. Yep. I think that's all of our questions that we had, and no more coming in. Oh, we just had one other question come in. Can we clone test steps? I think the short answer here is yes. You can clone test steps in Automation and Manager. Okay. Any other last questions while we have some time here? I will note that the release is available currently. So if you go into your Success portal, see on my screen now here, you'll see that the Summer 24 Release 2 is now live, and you can access the release links from here. It'll take you directly to all of the links for the Summer 24 Release 2. So you'll be able to access those from there, and you'll also see the Provar Manager App Exchange link as well as our CLI. So all of that is available. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and I think we've ended our questions. Thank you all so much for joining us today. With that being said, I'll sign off. Have a good rest of your day.